Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Resilience by Faith podcast. I am Reese, your host, and today I have Joyce Valencia with me. Welcome to the show. Thank you for taking time out of your Saturday.
Thank you, Reese, for having me on such an important platform. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. Definitely, you have a very beautiful story. It falls right in line with resilience, which is something that I love to highlight because too often we always highlight achievements and goals and the things like it's like a highlight reel, just like social media, but we don't ever highlight our failures. Very little people highlight their failures. And I'm glad that you're one, much like myself, that are taking things to another level and trying to encourage other people and show them not only is life not perfect, but we failed, we're successful, but yeah, it wasn't always that way, and I just appreciate that so much.
Definitely. And thank you so much for acknowledging that. I think in this modern society where we are so focused on productivity and getting things done as quickly as possible, and there's that instant gratification that we're seeing not only in the younger, but also in the older generations as well. It's not really fair. And this is a particularly strong quality in our culture. Like my Bay Area, I'm from the Bay Area, Northern California. This is a very strong part of our culture here. And it's very impractical, it's unrealistic, and not a lot of people realize that it's a lot of the cultural conditioning that influences us to think this way. But failure, there's so many good things about it too. We don't need to frown on it so readily or to perceive it so negatively.
Yeah, I don't know where that started. I remember like back in middle school where we had MySpace and when before Facebook came and everybody was just posting and being joyful and just being themselves, and then in some year wherever things just turned to like we have to be perfect, we have to be robot like, almost like if this person has this then I'm gonna get it too, and nobody's original or authentic to themselves, and half the people don't even know who they are. It's just let's do what they're doing because they're doing it, and let's travel where they're going because they went there, and I want to, it's not original at all.
Not at all. Yeah. And it really is very telling in my own personal life when you expect to go through that natural, smooth transition from one chapter of your life to another, and then all of a sudden, there is failure, there is personal hardship that makes you lose your resilience and your self esteem. And what do you do at that point? You didn't go to school for self esteem lessons, right? There was no course on that. And you're forced to like for yourself and bring yourself up and accomplish again after
Yeah.
having fallen off the mountain. Now you have this uphill climb. And what do you do about it? So then it turns into this huge spiritual journey, at least it was for me, on how to
Um,
overcome getting out of my own way because of that preconditioning. And it was a dark chapter in my life, but it was also
mhm.
one of the most amazing journeys in my life.
Yes, why don't you expand a little bit on that? Like, how did we get from A to B? Like, tell us how the how the thought was kind of ingrained in you when you were younger, and how did we kind of make the decision to get on the path that we were originally on, and then how we ended up here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Um,
Yeah.
when I was a child, I'm Filipino. I think it's important for me to note my ethnic group, right? That
Yes.
I'm Filipino, and specifically I'm Filipino American because that plays a huge role, and there's a big difference with that.
Right.
When I was a child, I grew up here in San Jose, California, and my parents, they were, Filipinos are you're either a nurse or you're a doctor. That's all they really want you to do. Or
Uh,
those other big ones, like you can be a lawyer, engineer too, but they really want you to be healthcare oriented. So they were
uh,
basically planting seeds at a young age. I remember when I was like 5 years old, I was still talking about this with my parents. They're like, my uncles and aunts would come over and they'd say, Joyce, tell Uncle so and so what you want to be when you grow up. And I'd say, I want to be a doctor. And I would get all of this praise, and everyone would coo at me and they'd pat me on the head. And they're like, oh, this one is a good child. She's so good. She's so obedient. And you just saw that positive feedback every time I said that. It was like I was being given money every time I said that to a child,
Yeah.
right? That was the value to it. But
Right.
no, it kind of conditioned me to think, yeah, I am going to be a doctor. Why not? It sounds like it's a respectable job. And I knew how
Um.
hard it would be. I didn't expect it. I didn't understand how hard exactly as a child, but I knew that I would have to work hard for it. And I
Right.
knew that that meant a steady stream of education from elementary school to middle school, high school, undergraduate, college, and then boom, medical school. And then hopefully that's the end of it, right? And I didn't even have a concept of how long, how many years it took to graduate from medical school and then residency and fellowship, depending on your specialty. But I
Um.
really felt about myself that I wanted to help people on a highly
Yeah.
specialized level. And the hardship here is that my parents came here from the Philippines to give us a better life, right? To give us greater
Right.
opportunities in America and chase that American dream. So they came here expecting us to continue education, which was an opportunity they didn't have because they had to sacrifice. They were martyrs in their generation. And for me, it was just kind of get there. You're not allowed to work and
Hmm.
just focus on healthcare. And
Right.
I didn't realize that this was an influence on my parents and on my
Hmm.
previous ancestors. I have other relatives who are also doctors and nurses. Everyone is healthcare oriented in the family, but I ended up going that pathway and then I failed. I ended up not getting accepted to other medical schools in the US. I ended up going to a Caribbean medical school. You know what those are?
I've heard of it. I've had a couple of people tell me that they did abroad,
Yeah,
but there's not a whole lot of abroad places. Well, not for PAs, but maybe
right.
for other specialties. Yeah, like people that do it abroad, and they said either it was one of the best decisions they made or one of the crazy experiences that they've had. But I've had to talk to people about it, and they said at least, I had the opportunity to go try it out, meet people,
Yeah.
um, experience the culture. Yeah.
Right. I would share the same wavelength. It was an
Yeah.
amazing experience going there. It was also a nightmare. It was a nightmare too. It was extremely hard with these Caribbean medical schools. They just kind of give you the opportunity to pursue
Yeah.
medical school, a medical degree, without the
Um,
hardship of that rigorous acceptance rate of U.S. medical schools.
yes.
But there's a very high attrition rate associated with them. In my particular school, I'm not going to name it, it's about a 15% attrition rate for failure. So
Ooh.
it's just one of those things. Some of my classmates failed out of medical school within the first semester. Some of
Oh no.
them failed somewhere through the curriculum, like I did. I was there for about a year before I
Oh.
realized that I wasn't happy. I had to listen to myself when I realized that I was losing my resilience. I was falling into a depression. And it was because I was trying to rise to someone else's expectations and not necessarily to my own. And I was in my 20s. I was like 22, 23. I didn't know any better. You know, you're not really an adult at that age. You're so immature. You have no idea how to adult.
Yes.
I have no
Yes.
money except
Yes.
exceptional financial debt.
Yes.
So
I
I
agree.
go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying I agree 100%. 100%.
Yeah. And so I even right now I'm still paying my loans for medical school, but I left within a year because I wanted to make sure I didn't accumulate as much debt if I knew I
Right.
wasn't going to be all in for it, right? And what
Mm-hmm.
I had to ask myself, what did it take for me to go all in? Well, I needed to have that passion, not just, a desire. And I started questioning my childhood dream. I finally got what I wanted after fantasizing about becoming a doctor for so long. And then realized that was that what my parents wanted or what I wanted? So I, I
Right.
then I left medical school, and there are so many surrounding factors about what led me to leave. Like my mom was hospitalized at that time. My brother was also hospitalized for a separate occasion. I had a huge goiter for my thyroid, and I actually needed to have it surgically removed. And I was worried about thyroid cancer. So I came home to get that taken care of. And during my recovery period, I told myself, I'm actually not happy. And the body keeps the score. That's an amazing book, by the way, by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. But it's
Mhm.
true. The body keeps the score, and there is so much to be said about illness, right? And if you're not
Right.
harmonious with your body, it's going to show up physically. And I told myself,
Yeah.
no, this doesn't sound like a good sign. I'm going to drop out. So I left. I left medical school. And then that was the end of my childhood dream. And it left me out in the middle of nowhere, aimless, with no real intention in my life. And I had to rediscover that.
But that's where God takes things and he's like, "Oh, now I have room." Now because you step back. So you step back from how you wanted it to go or how you thought you wanted it to go, and you made room for him to be able to work and made everything work together for your good. Like made it all. Now you have a story, now you have a testimony, but you're also paying it forward by telling the story. But even though we can't see or even have that type of thought process when we're in the midst of it, because it's just like, okay, I need to figure something out now. If this isn't what I want to do, then I need to figure out where I want to go. So how did you kind of think, like how did you come to the point where you're like, okay, this is where I want to go now. This is what I want to do and I'm going to pursue it. Like who inspired you, or what did you learn that made you kind of pivot in the direction where you are now?
Ah, this is such a great question. And Reese, what I love about, your starting comment there, surrendering to God. Oh my goodness, so much importance to that. And that is exactly what I did at that point in my life. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just following instructions from my parents of what was expected in my own culture. I had nowhere to go. I lost my identity. I lost my ego. And another way of saying that is removing your ego and allowing God to enter into your life. A lot of people, they get triggered by that word God, right? But it's like whatever vibes with you, whatever spiritual forces, it's okay in my opinion, right? And this is not a
Right.
religious topic, but I went to church, right? And I even
Yeah.
meditated on it. I reflected, I journaled on it to process my thoughts and emotions. And I was
Right.
going through like deep healing of
Yeah.
experiencing shame and depression and
Right.
failure in life. And I realized, well, I felt like this was a message from God.
Right.
Failure doesn't have to be bad, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like there are so many paradigms in this world where we live in a dualistic world where we have to navigate through the positive and negative qualities of life, and we learn through each of them. And
Right.
this is not the pearly gates of heaven. This is earth, right? We're in this physical world, and we got to learn from everything because everything is a reflection of God, and you are a reflection of God. And your goal, my ultimate goal really is to be a productive member of society, right? And to
Yes.
be able to give back, how you were saying that, pay it forward. And
Yes.
it was just, how can I see God in this situation where I totally failed myself?
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I couldn't see God in it.
Right. It's like, where can you see his glory? Okay, this is all bad, yes, but what's one good thing about this situation? Like, you stepped away from it, but now you have a chance to figure out what it is that you want to do, how you want to live your life and be happy instead of living the way you're living now. So I'm excited to hear, like, who inspired you. Maybe you saw something, heard about, like, what helped you pivot from the depressed state and being lost to kind of like, okay, I'm getting back up now and I'm going for this.
A lot of it was listening, right? listening to
Yeah.
my inner voice, following my intuition and trusting that, and realizing that that is a message from God trying to
Yeah.
lead me. Like my guardian angels are leading me in the right direction if only I gave it up to them, if only I surrendered it. And I
Yeah.
found myself, my mom was severely disappointed. Of course, she's a tiger mom, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, you
Oh
don't want to
Lord.
go back and get a job with your science degree? You're going to go back to school doing whatever, photography or something. She was so
Yeah.
disappointed. I was like, I don't even know what I want in my life. Can I just go back to school and do whatever?
Yeah.
And ironically, I just went back to school to take anatomy and physiology and microbiology and all that
Yes.
jazz at the community college level. And I realized I still wanted that. And I wanted
Right.
to go the other way. I was actually helping a professional wedding photographer because that's a passion of mine. And I felt like, oh, maybe I should just follow my hobbies and interests because that seems more interesting. And I feel be less likely to burn out that way. But
Yes.
when I did the photography, I realized now it's turning into a chore and it's no longer enjoyable. So I stopped
Mhm.
that and I went back to school for all these science courses. And
Uh-huh.
I started being pitched, be a teacher's assistant for me for the anatomy class because I did so
Yeah.
well. And I got paid as a tutor in the science department. And then I ended up taking a volunteer position in the hospital as a ER receptionist, and I was in the telemetry room stocking supplies for the nurses. And then all of a
Right.
sudden, I started shadowing a doctor in an endocrine clinic, and he was
Mhm.
amazing. I was not a thing in the way for him. He used me as like this tool, and he gave me opportunities to do hands-on stuff. He would teach me how to do physical exams. I would learn how to read blood pressure, take all the other vitals, and I learned
Uh-huh.
how to do thyroid ultrasound. So he was an endocrinologist. And that kind of
Yes.
goes back to my story. I had a goiter. I had to get it surgically removed, and that's what triggered me to leave medical school. So it's all
Uh-huh.
very symbolic, very poetic that all of these events were aligned in this specific way to help me realize what my passion was. I still wanted to help people and I still wanted that long term relationship with my patients. So I did go back to healthcare. And the other thing is that I was scarred, right? Now I have this imposter syndrome. I got PTSD. I'm still healing from my trauma, but I'm going back. And I decided I want to be a nurse practitioner. I don't want
Yeah.
to be just a registered nurse on the floor. I want to be a nurse practitioner. It was a very specific goal of mine. Not that there's
Uh-huh.
anything wrong with nursing. It's just that I felt for me what resonated best was a nurse practitioner role in an outpatient setting, right? And that
Yeah.
what's great about the nursing profession is there's so many different job positions, right? You can
Yeah.
work in peds, you can work inpatient, outpatient, you can be a travel nurse and stuff like that. So many opportunities. Um, but it comes with the stress too. You kind of pay for it. But that's
Yes.
how I did it. I listened to my intuition, which I felt was
Um,
God leading me the way. And even though I had even more hardship having to overcome my own imposter syndrome and a little bit of
mhm.
the darkness, there were some suicidal ideations involved. The thing that kept me alive actually was that I had so much more conviction and so much more passion of being in this route, not as a medical doctor, but as a nurse practitioner. And that it's essentially the same job.
Yes, and I know your patients really, 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 I'm speaking for them because this is how I feel. But I know your patients really, really, really appreciate you because not only are you doing something because somebody told you that they wanted you to do it, but you're passionate about it because and specifically endocrinology because you mentioned you had a goiter, you went through some things and you had to fight to be in the position that you are today. So you're not just there like, yeah, this is this and this is that, okay, take your script and I'll see you later. It's like you really, really, really care for your patients. I can tell that. And it's such a difference between people who fight to be in medicine and people who are given. the position to be in medicine, but they really don't have a passion for wanting to be there for whatever reason. It could be because somebody told them that this is what's expected of you and they followed it, or they saw somebody else doing it and they became it, they survived it, but it's not really their passion. It's just something about when people align their passions with their actions and they get to live in it every day. I really stand for that quote where it says, do what you love, so that every day you can't complain about what you do. I'm probably getting it wrong, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, if you do what
Right.
you love every day, then it's not a job. If you get to do what you love every day, it's not a job. And I can hear it in your voice that you're
Right.
really, really, really passionate about it. And that's how I am when it comes to psychiatry. I tried leaving psychiatry. I tried switching to primary care and it just didn't work. It didn't
Ooh, that's
work
a big shift.
at
Yeah.
all. Yes, yes. I left psych. I tried to like a couple of weeks of being in primary care and I was miserable. I could pick out all the psychiatric conditions and all the patients and treat that. But I mean, I could do the medical side of things too. It just wasn't as enjoyable. I don't have a lot of time with the people and it goes on and on and on. And it just ultimately pointed me back to go back to psychiatry, go back to your God-given talent of what you're good at. Even though I can switch specialties and I've done a little bit of things, but no. Primary care, I feel like, is a young person's game. Like that, it's a lot of patients, a lot of fast paced, a lot of this and that. And I'm
Yeah.
getting older. So, yep, I can't.
It's so broad. You have to be on top of so many different aspects of their health. It's a bit overwhelming. Once you specialize, you don't really want to do primary care anymore. Yeah.
No, and I felt like I had something to prove to myself. It wasn't about anybody else. It just felt like I was that same girl in school. And I was like, well, I can do this. I still know this. And even though I do know it, but I didn't enjoy it. I really
Yeah.
didn't enjoy
Doesn't mean you should do it. That's right.
it. Yeah, like I was there every day. I love patient care, but like when it came to everything else, and like you said, you're in charge, it's so overwhelming, and you're in charge of this, that, this, that, this, that, this, that. And I was just like, okay, put me back into psychiatry where I can just focus on this, even though I'm treating a plethora of things, but I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing that as a child that wasn't at all what I was taught. And that's something that I
right.
really want to emphasize for other people, especially in their 20s right now, that
Hmm.
really honestly do what brings you joy, what brings
Please.
harmony in your life, because
Yes.
otherwise you're just gonna burn out.
Right, right. And that's not fun at all. But definitely, how did we switch? Okay, we got inspired. We went to school. We graduated, of course. And now you're practicing. How did we get to the point of I think I want to tell my story. I think I want to pay it forward. Where did that idea kind of plant a seed?
Oh, you know what? So I love writing. I blog. I used to journal every day. I don't do it so much nowadays, maybe like once a week or once a month even, because things are just so busy and I have so many projects. I don't know how to relax, basically. I'm like a type A personality. But that has been a passion of mine. It's a huge therapeutic outlet for processing my thoughts and my emotions.
Mhm.
And when I was in clinical rotation for nursing school, you have to journal for your day. Your clinical instructor reads that, and they critique your soap note, and then they come back and you do a debrief with them, and they tell you what's going on. And one of my clinical instructors, I mentioned it. I actually wrote my book. It's going to launch
Um,
soon on Amazon, and she was the
yeah.
one who told me. She pulled me alongside, yeah, in a little break room in the hospital. And she's like, Joyce, you can be the voice for people who want to hear this kind of story. And then I went through an accelerated nursing program too, where you get your bachelor's degree in about a year. And that was a nightmare. And that's why I was just like, all of these triggers were like turning on, and like
Yeah.
really challenging my resilience. Oh, it was so stressful. But she said, you know what? You need to share this story. You need to be the voice that other people want to hear because other people will want to know what's it like to join an accelerated nursing program? What's it like to be a nurse practitioner? And I
Right.
took that a step higher and incorporated the previous story of failing out of medical school because that is the
Yeah.
thing that it is no longer a thing of shame for me. I am proud to share that story. I have come so far in my healing journey where I can look back and say from a place of wisdom that this was actually a good thing that happened to me. And everything they asked me like, would you ever, if do you ever regret it? Would you ever go back to medical school? I'm sure right now I have a wealth of knowledge in medicine that I could easily get through medical school very well. But do I want to go back? It's kind of like you in primary care. It's like, I can do it, but should I do it? No, not necessarily. So I tell them like I would go back and I would fail out again because this is an amazing journey that is not based on superficial conditioning in the childhood phase. It is a place where God has had influence in my life. I would rather do that all over again. It's amazing.
Yes, and the freedom you have not to feel like,
Right.
oh, it's Monday again. Like, oh, I got to see these people again. Oh, I have to walk or travel or commute to my job again. Like, you get to love what you do. So I'm happy for that. That just made me smile from the inside out.
Oh, yeah.
When you were talking about that. Yep, that made me very happy.
Good.
But
Yeah, I'm glad.
so what date? Like, do you have a date and everything planned, or is it just kind of like in the planning stages, or is it like pre-order season? Where are you in the process with the book?
You know, it's right now it's still pre-order season.
Okay.
And you can go to my website, playlargeatlife.com, to pre-order that copy, which would be autographed from me, and then it will be shipped to you. But actually, I'm reviewing the proof copy from Amazon, and it's just a matter of yes or no from me, and then it's gonna go live. It could possibly go live tomorrow. I'm gonna give a date. I don't know what date it is. Next Monday? Do you? It's
Yes,
supposed to
it's
be live
okay.
next Monday. Okay.
Yes, definitely take your time because whew, I know exactly how you feel. It took I have a book, but it's definitely about my failures and stuff too, but I wrote it when I was in PA school, so it's a little seasoned, it's a little old, but the
Yeah.
story still has the power. It's on Amazon and when during the process of me kind of making that decision cuz I told the Lord, I told my thoughts, I told anything that kept telling me to write a book, kick rocks. Cause I'm not writing a book. I'm busy. I'm in school right now. Like I need to be focused. And I just
Yeah.
kept putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. And then I was like, okay, maybe if I make a daily word count, then I can hit the word count every day and eventually it'll be done. And
Yeah.
somehow, way or another, it was done in like 6 months. And then I went back and forth because you are your worst enemy. So I went back and forth with myself and I was like, but do I really want to put this out into the world? Because then people are going to know things about me that I'm not really ready to share. Like
Yeah.
I put a lot of stuff in that book, a lot of stuff. And I finally ultimately got the nerve and put it out there. And I think it was more impactful than what I thought. But that process, man, before you go live, before the book signing and all the things, like it's just, I think it's a mental war. Like I really do. I think it's a mental
Gosh. I mean, I don't know how to like describe it, but mental war is a really great way to describe it. And I
war.
appreciate your empathy. But I would love to read your book. I'm gonna go looking for it. Okay, we'll talk more after this.
Well, we will definitely talk more after this. I definitely want to thank you so much for coming on the show. You mentioned your website, but is there any other platforms like if someone listening to the show wants to contact you because you are an NP and they want to get more information personally, or if you're, there's always people looking to shadow or maybe they just want to support you in any way possible. Where can they find you?
So you can go to my website, also joycevalencia.com. So I have that platform. I'm also on most of the major social medias on TikTok and Instagram. Literally, you can just type in Joyce Valencia. Nothing special.
Okay, you heard it here first, folks. Please go to the website and support her in any way possible. It could be any day, like she said, it could go live. But if you don't plan on stalking the Amazon page to see when it goes live, you can pre-order. That's why it's available. And also on all major platforms, social media wise, Joyce Valencia, you can type that in, follow her journey, support her in everything that she's doing. And if you would like to pick her brain or give her feedback about the podcast, that episode that we're doing today, please do so. I think it's a powerful story, and there's so much more to get into that we didn't get an opportunity to talk about. But definitely, if you got something from this podcast, please hit her up and let her know like how much you appreciate everything she shared with us today. And so thank you again, Joyce, for coming on the show. Really appreciate you taking the time out to be here. And definitely, if you're open to coming back again, we can set something up again.
Oh my gosh, I would love that, Reese. We'll talk again about that. But oh, thank you so much. This is such an amazing podcast. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share that or to be part of that with you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. And guys, thank you for listening. I will be on the next episode of the podcast. Until then, follow us at The Resilient POD on Instagram or The Resilience by Faith podcast on Facebook. And until next time, guys, be safe. Bye.